Welcome to another edition of the Badass Entrepreneurs Club. I am so excited today to talk with Jennifer de St. George because she is an entrepreneur who's been around for a long time, and she has an amazing story to tell us, I know, and I can't wait to learn some big lessons from her as well. So I'm very excited to have you here, Jennifer.
It is absolutely my pleasure, Angela. Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure as well. So can you give us a little bit of background how you got into entrepreneurship?
Yes, I am in two markets. I teach dental practice management on a global basis, which means I teach dentists or anybody in healthcare, but mainly my reputation is in dentistry, on how to run a successful dental practice outside the mouth. I'm not a dentist as you are, so I don't presume to know anything about clinical, though having been married to two dentists, I actually dentistry is in my DNA, but so I'm doing a disclaimer here, I'm not a dentist. And I was a risk taker in how I got into that. And then my other market is also on a global basis. I work with professional speakers on how to grow their speaking business, which also I got into by my entrepreneurial approach. And if you, Angela, were to ask me what is the biggest thing or the biggest talent or the quality or the quirk of an entrepreneur, I would say risk-taking, which is a recovering perfectionist. And you being a dentist, and I've worked with dentists for 4 decades, they are left brain, they're perfectionists, they are not risk takers. They think very carefully before making a decision. And so as a recovering perfectionist, I am very much in that environment. So to be a risk taker and throw caution to the wind and jump from the frying pan into the fire, it's an oxymoron. And it's that balance for the entrepreneur. At what point dare you go and make that big leap? And if you fall down, what will happen?
Absolutely. And we see that all the time with, well, a lot of people in healthcare are perfectionists as well, but dentists, we're kind of the worst because we're trying to make these tiny little white things that we're working on look exactly the way they were when they first came into someone's mouth. And so it is definitely that big dichotomy between perfectionism and progress, right? So how did you become an entrepreneur? Because we know that you've been around for a long time. And so to be an entrepreneur, especially as a female, I'm going to acknowledge that because it is, for your generation, it is a bit of an outside the box thing. And so how did you get inspired to become an entrepreneur, or was it just something that you were born with?
Today, I would say I was born with it. I moved from London to New York City, where I worked for a year. For J. Walter Thompson, the then largest advertising agency in the world. And then I moved to San Francisco, and I noticed I could only hold a job for a year. And after a year, I got bored. Or, Angela, I was a pain in the butt to them because I said, you know, this makes no sense. Can I suggest how this way would be better? And corporations don't like the Jennys and the Angelas of this world. We drive them crazy. And so bottom line, I married my late husband 2 weeks after he graduated from dental school. And being a dentist, I know you can appreciate this. We opened the door on day one to a scratch practice, no patients, not a name in our schedule. And he says, why don't you answer the phone, dear, for the first 2 to 3 weeks while I go into the marketplace and find somebody who actually knows what they're doing. I mean, I didn't even know how many teeth there were in the mouth. I mean, that's how naive I was. Bottom line, after 18 years of running the practice and turning it into an extremely successful practice, I then, without having worked in another practice ever, you know, became an authority on how to do it using what I perceive a common sense and knowledge.
Now, common sense isn't all that common though, right?
You know, in all the years I've been on stage, Angela, I've only been booed once. And the dentist asked me one day, he put his hand up and he said, Jenny, can you teach common sense and logic? Or do you have to be born with it? And I don't know how you would answer it. I answered, well, in my opinion, because I had that needed some help. And when they finished booing, I said, well, I'm sorry, I think I'm right. And I'm having a problem with the booing. So that's how I got into dentistry. How I got into speaking is a story I only tell when I'm working with other speakers. So you are wearing two hats, Angela. That you are a dentist, but you're also an entrepreneur in the speaking coaching business. So I'll keep this very brief because I could literally make it into a 20-minute shaggy dog story. Bottom line, running the practice for several years, and you know this as a dentist, the one thing we hate doing is asking patients to pay. When the subject of healthcare delivery and money hit dead on, it's 9:30. We don't know how to handle ourselves. So I was so bad at it. And a flyer came through the mail saying that there was a big program in San Francisco for all healthcare professionals teaching us how to ask patients for money in a professional way. And I thought, this I need. So I drive up and there are about 250 people in the room. In my opinion, big mistake because they were all healthcares. There were dentists and physicians and chiropractors and vets. So I sit there for the whole day, ask somebody where the owner is, the person running the whole meeting. And I woke up and I say to him, I would like my money back. And he looks at me, he said, excuse me. I said, I would like my money back. He said, what's wrong? Why do you want your money back? I said, well, your speaker was wrong and the information was not accurate. So there's this 30-second silence while he looks at me and I look at him. And he sort of, he says, as he stutters a little bit, have you ever spoken before in public? And I said, never. And he said, do you think you could do any better than she did? His star female speaker on the stage. And forgive the choice of word I'm going to use, but this is exactly what I said to him. I said, well, I sure as hell couldn't be any worse.
Amazing.
And he looks at me again and puts his hand out and says, may I have your business card? So I give him my business card. I take his business card. He said, I'll call you. Famous last words. So I walk out of the room and for the next 3 hours, I sit in the hotel lobby with a pad and a piece of paper and I design a program for a day the way I would do it. And then I waited for him to call. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, I was so mad. I took about $8,000 out of my savings account. I hired the Hyatt Regency at San Francisco Airport. I designed a flyer. I put it in the mail to 10,000 dentists in the San Francisco Bay Area. And the day I walked into the room, I had about 125 dentists and staff paying, I think from memory, $127 for the day. I read my notes for about the first 45 minutes and realized this made no sense. Threw the notes away, just spoke from the heart for the rest of the day. So I would say I became a professional and banked obviously several $1,000s after expenses. And for the next 9 years, I ran across North America and the UK, putting on my own public seminars, just because I was so upset that that audience was being ripped off for what I thought was poor information. So that's when an entrepreneur gets the shot in the arm.
Absolutely. Can I ask what year that was, or approximately when that happened?
Oh, I can tell you exactly. I mean, for those of us a certain age, we don't want to say it. It was March 1st, 1974. It's ingrained in my head.
Amazing. That's actually, it was funny when I started my speaking career too, I had no idea that people would like hire me or like sponsor me and all this stuff. So I just started throwing my own events and like booking myself into different facilities across Canada and advertising it. And everyone was like, that's like completely backwards as to how you do it. Usually you build up your reputation through other companies and then you start doing this. And I didn't know better. And I thought that was the easiest way. And so that's what I did. So I think that's hilarious that you're doing that so long ago. And also, you know, thinking so outside the box to host your own event when someone else wasn't going to be doing it. So that's, you really are a trailblazer, aren't you?
And yet, Angela, the story you just told as to how you started, that's exactly how we both took the same approach. So I would send a flyer out with 10 cities in maybe 8 states. And it was just get on the plane, get to the hotel the day before, do your speaking. You know, sometimes you made money, sometimes you broke even. And I didn't know there was any other way. I'd never heard of the association market or all that stuff. I think, if I may make a comment to speakers particularly, when you and I have done what we've done, and we're then invited to somebody else's meeting, I think we're the best speakers in the planet, because while I'm speaking and I'm concerned about the audience, my other head, the entrepreneur, is saying, why are they out of coffee? The toilet paper's out in the bathroom. And I'm forever going to my association and saying, when you pay the bill at the end of today, I would take 40% off because the service in this hotel was crap. And then you can negotiate down to maybe, and they can't believe that a speaker just doesn't speak, take the check and say, thank you. No, I'm sort of become the, by osmosis, I've become the meeting planner for them. And,
Exactly.
And they appreciate it. And you can't buy that experience, Angela, that you and I have.
No, it's so true. And I'm not sure that all speakers are like that, but there's always a way to innovate the event that you participated in. And I think it's great when, as a speaker, you can be like, okay, well, I've participated in all these events, and this compared to some of the other ones could be improved, and giving them that opportunity to level up. If they choose to take it, great. If they don't, that's their own choice, right?
So following up on that, for the entrepreneurs who are listening, I found in dentistry, as in any market, there are planners who are professional, who know as much as we do. And then there are these wonderful volunteers who have a life outside volunteering. And so to pick up on your point, I actually put together an 18-page manual for volunteer meeting planners who were clueless as how to operate with sales and catering and negotiate a hotel contract. And from that, I have on 4 occasions been invited to speak to meeting planners on how to work better with speakers. So the more proactive you are, the more your market really appreciates you going that extra mile.
For sure. Can I ask you a question about, this is a question I hate being asked, but I want to ask it to you because you've probably been asked this question a million more times than I have. You know, as a female entrepreneur, do you feel like there's limitations because of your gender?
Bottom line, no. And it's funny you would ask that question, because I got a LinkedIn, and I'm very late to social media. Every bone in my little body has fought social media, and that's for therapy for another day. Yeah. And I got a very nice message through LinkedIn the other day from a lady who opened her message to me, very complimentary, and said, as a female entrepreneur, I would love to connect with you. And I sent a pretty bottom line email back saying I was unaware I was a female entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur. And then she realized, you know, what she had said, and she tried to backtrack. And my answer was very short. And I said, I personally have never experienced the glass ceiling. I don't even think that way.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a great, that the glass is half full, Angela. I'm always proactive. You don't put the burglar alarm in the house the day after your house has been burgled, which one of my next door neighbors did. So I'm always looking for the opportunity. And so to me, in fact, I found that it has been a benefit, because in my market, you know, I'd walk into a meeting and there were all men except for me, and I loved it.
I've still been at meetings recently where maybe 5% of the speakers are female and the rest are male, which is shocking to me. And I'm the same way. I've never experienced the glass ceiling, maybe because I wasn't aware that I was supposed to have a glass ceiling.
Exactly.
And it's, I think it's just, you're either an innovator and you can see the potential, or you're not. And I think sometimes, no offense to anyone out there, but I think sometimes that glass ceiling thing is us getting in our own way. It has nothing to do with anything external. If you put in the effort and you have that will, you can make things happen.
I could not agree more. And I don't want to be pompous and say that people are using it as an excuse. I don't mean to do that. But maybe they get some comfort when they don't get the yes they wanted. They say, oh, well, you know, there is a glass ceiling. However, I'm in Silicon Valley. And as I look out of my office window, I'm looking at 3000 Sand Hill Road. Sand Hill Road, as you know, is the global center of VC money. I mean, they've got billions sitting in their little bank accounts. And we do have lawsuits in Silicon Valley where women genuinely have proved that there is a glass ceiling. But to me, that's a whole different marketplace. May I ask you, when you said you felt there were 5% of the women speakers in that meeting you referred to, which marketplace were you in?
It was actually dentistry. It was one about kind of the future of dentistry. And I was scratching my head trying to figure out why it wasn't 50-50. I don't know if maybe there was more futurologists that were available that were male. Maybe it was just, you know, they put out all this call to action and only certain people stepped into the arena and said, yeah, I'll take the gig. But it was really interesting to me to suddenly realize, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of dudes on stage.
You know, when I came into dentistry, I remember when the first dental student graduated from a dental school. I mean, it was like, get out the drums, we've got a female dentist. Today, 70% of the dentists graduating are female. So why would they have not had more women up on the stage with you? It just defies logic.
Yeah. Do you think it's part of just the culture of how people are raised? You know, there's like, I know there's things that still echo in my brain from what my parents said to me, that, you know, I shouldn't do this because I'm a girl, or I shouldn't do that. And maybe I'm just defiant to the way that I was raised. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Or what do you think is happening?
You made a comment where we both found we sort of think the same way. If you have a passion about something, I don't see where the glass ceiling falls into conversation. When I'm with a speaker group, and as you know, you can be sitting in the bar having a glass of wine or maybe having a meal, and you learn that somebody in the group is sort of a newbie, they're an emerging speaker, and you know, so you try to make them feel welcomed and not overwhelmed by all this experience running around the table. And so you'll say to them, well, that's very interesting, Angela. You know, what subject do you speak on, or what is your market? And they look at me and say, I haven't decided yet. And I just look at them. I'm sort of a bottom line person. I just say, I suggest you keep your day job. I said, if you don't have a passion that's going to drive you on that stage and motivate the audience, just keep your day job.
That's fair. I think sometimes it's hard though, if you have someone who's really talented and they have, like, when they don't have a passion for anything, that's one thing. But if they have a passion for a few different things, it can be really hard to choose that niche to actually follow through with. I'm sure you found this in dentistry as well as with speakers. How do you help people to navigate that? Because that can be one of the biggest obstacles to really making your brand understandable. Is, you know, if you're everything to everyone because you love doing everything, that's not actually going to help you to stand out in the marketplace in any industry.
Actually, you just quoted to me what I was going to quote back to you, and that is, to be jack of all trades, master of none. That's exactly where I was going. To be jack of all trades, master of none, to me is a recipe for failure. In my, you know, if I were to take a pie and make it into slices, there are some slices within business management that I consider myself, I might be the best in the world in that little focus. And then there are all these other slices with people who have much more extensive knowledge. So I'm the biggest networker in the world. I either know the answer, or if I don't know the answer, I will know the person who does know the answer. And so you can tell on stage, particularly to coaches and consultants. And if I may just make a quick comment here, because to the entrepreneur, I think this is so important. And I'm going to sound pretty brutal. If I'm walking into a meeting room, Angela, and I've got a speaker on stage, it's most probably going to take me 2 to 3 minutes to know whether I've got a professional speaker who makes their living and has lived on the stage for some time, or whether I've got a coach or a consultant, or somebody with an off-stage business, and they are speaking to market their off-stage business. The way they don't control the audience, and they don't lead the audience. And to me, as an entrepreneur, I need to be in control. That's what people come to me to get answers. A good question. I don't have the answer. Let me say. So when they facilitate from the stage, I personally think it's a recipe for disaster. So funny, you would just quote what I was going to say. Jack of all trades, master of none. You have no reputation of following in any one area.
For newer speakers out there, for them to, like, there's a lot of ego in, like, it can hurt your ego significantly if you have to admit you don't know something. And sometimes I find people like fake it until they make it, which is something I like for the influencers that I work with. I'm like, let's not do that. Let's just own exactly where you are. People are going to watch your journey and allow you to transform. And that can be so hard for people because, especially if they're a speaker, if they're a dentist, they're a healthcare leader of some sort, to be able to admit they don't know something, or they're not at the point that they would love to be projecting that they're at. That is one of the scariest things for them, and will actually prevent them from getting on social media, out there showing who they are to the world, so that they can help the clients who need them. And I always feel like people will Swiss cheese your reputation. If you're trying to sell yourself as something that you're not, people will so quickly figure it out. Or if you're copying someone else's program and presenting it as your own, people will be able to poke holes in the information you're presenting because you don't have that experience behind you. But there's so much fear in showcasing where you authentically are at. How do you help the people that you're working with to actually get them past that point and just able to own what they're doing?
Listening to you is really scary because you have just used the word that I was also going to use. Number one, never, ever, ever lie to an audience or to a client. If somebody asks me a question and I don't know the answer, I'll say, great question, give me your business card at the break. I will find somebody who does. So never lie to the audience. You used a word which you almost slipped in. I'm going to use the word that has been around and has been forgotten, and it's called plagiarism. Today, people call it repurposing. I call it stealing people's stuff. And people like you and I have stories about that. So to the entrepreneur listening, if I say nothing else to you but the following two, number one, learn to write your own copy, write your own material, write your own words on the website, write your own CV. I can always tell when a third-party marketing person has written the stuff for the speaker, because Angela, there's no passion in there. And secondly, to me, the test of a true entrepreneur is they must create their own stuff. You must be a creator, not a repurposer of other people's stuff. And how do I test the entrepreneur? They take Q&As from the audience. I love Q&As, and people who steal other people's stuff don't take Q&As because God, maybe they didn't read in that book. So I love Q&As, and that will really sort out. Help me. What is the equivalent of men to boys? You know, we say that separates the men, boys, separate the girls from the women.
Yeah, I don't think we use that one. There's so many interesting, when you think about like gender specific terminology or phrases, there's a lot of ones that are very male, very female. And sometimes, you know, it'd be nice to have that separating the little baby humans from the grown ass people. I don't know.
Throughout a buzzword, I mean, I'm thinking in my head, and about I'm ready to make a point, Angela comes up and you use the word authentic. If I hear the word authentic, well, I will actually throw. And when you listen to us using it, Angela, they say, you must be authentic. And I'm always confused. One is authentic or you are not. You cannot be authentic. You don't say, between 9 and 10, when I speak to Anne, I will be authentic. But at 10:03, I know I have to be authentic. It is being so misused, and it's almost encouraging people to be fake.
Mhm.
I mean, just a perception there. So I'd say just be yourself.
Mhm.
You know,
Which is,
if I'm in a large convention, and somebody makes a remark, which I just get off the stage and I just up to the back of the room and stuff. Of course, I don't use PowerPoint.
mhm.
So because me as speakers, we're there to communicate with the audience. So I would say, you know, develop a brand for what you stand for. And if that's being honest and bottom line and common sense, and tell it the way it is, it takes a bit of time, but then the entrepreneur will gain respect and a following and a fan club who appreciate that honesty.
Mhm. And I'd like to go back to the Q&A side of things, because I think that is one thing for me when I get to be on a panel where people are just like randomly throwing me questions. I love it because suddenly I have these ideas that come to my head because the way someone asked it, pokes my brain in a different way and something else comes out. And I think for those who are scared, the more you can get on those panel discussions, the more you can even just let people ask you questions, like do 20-minute sessions at a time with random people and just let them ask you questions. You're going to understand your material so much more. And what you mentioned about writing your own material, you know, at first it's going to feel gross because you're like, I don't know if this is right. I don't know if I'm doing this well, but you're going to learn so much through that process about really what you are about, what your brand is about, and what you actually bring to the world. If you try and let someone conceive that for you, it's not coming from the heart. You can have someone tidy it up for you and make it beautiful and sound better. But I think those first steps of trying to figure out who you are is absolutely has to come from your own self, not from a professional person who's going to try and listen to you and then recreate what you would or what you should say.
I'm glad you went back to the Q&A, because to me, that is really the sign. That's what sorts out, to me, the creative professional speaker from the others. And somebody may ask me, what is the favorite program you ever gave? Some years ago for the dental school at the University of Buffalo. And the guy who hired me, big fan of mine, he said, Jenny, just pick your subject. And I said, just give me a wireless handheld mic and a stool, and I will take Q&As for 3 hours. He said, are you sure? I said, absolutely. And I just thrive on that. And when the National Association, I've never seen a breakout session on Q&As. I've never saying this is how you control an audience. It's like there's a whole area of communication that reason, Angela, is being totally ignored. And I love it, because if you can think on your feet, your feedback is she's witty, great sense of humor, love the way her mind works. But it takes guts.
Absolutely. And I think it's hard for the perfectionist types too, because they're like, oh, they think about that answer that they gave that wasn't perfect, and then they lose sleep for a week over it. And it really teaches you progress over perfection when you have to do those things. And I'm someone, like, the first few panels that I had to do or hosted, I was like shaking the whole time because I was afraid I was going to come across dumb, right? And then eventually you're just like, yep, well, I'm someone, like, when you ask me a question, whatever comes out of my mouth is exactly what I thought. And maybe it shouldn't have come out of my mouth, but it just does. And so you always get a straight answer. And I started to just embrace that. Nope, that's me. You ask me a question, you're going to get exactly what I think. And if you don't like it, it's okay. But there's definitely that fear for sure.
If I can just play off the last comment you made, because you actually raised a point that I'd like to build on, because I talk about this all the time. When we are in our speaker mode, our brain needs to be about 5 seconds ahead of our mouth. So I do it so well now, but I'm forever editing. So I might think, oh, I want to say that, and then immediately. So it just happens now unconsciously. But we do have to learn that mouth does not get ahead of our brain. Otherwise, we can say some interesting things.
Yes, and now everything is recorded, so it can live on the internet forever, how we shoved our foot in our mouth, right?
True.
Amazing. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience, tips about entrepreneurship before we head out?
I heard somebody in the business world from New York being interviewed some years ago on a San Francisco talk station, and he was entrepreneur, and of course we all know his answer was passion. But he made a very interesting comment I've never forgotten. I don't quote many people because I create my own quotes. So when I quote somebody else, it means I hold them in great esteem. And he said, the word passion is overused. He said, so when I work with my business clients, I call it focused energy. And it's really brilliant because you can have the greatest passion in the world. As a creator, we can be scattered with our passion and multitask out too many things because little creative gray cells. And I would say the most important thing to an entrepreneur is be honest to yourself. The only thing we say in marketplace is our integrity and our reputation. Always think long term. I turned down a big financial offer a couple of days ago because I felt that there was a financial conflict of interest I couldn't accept. And I think if you're always true to yourself, but focus. When I focus, I can do more in 2 hours than most people can do in a week. Question is, how often do I genuinely cut everything out? And so I'm not doing it now, but for years, I'd just check into a hotel. I take I check the hotel for 2 weeks and I would do all my writing because I call room service, somebody there to make the bed, and I didn't have to worry. So many speakers actually do that, but obviously today, so I've just taken my home and I've created little areas around my home. So I go to different places in my house to do different creativity, as if I'm in a hotel room, and it helps me focus up here.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I'm writing my books, the same thing. I lock myself in a hotel room for a week, get it written out, get the first draft written. And then after that, I can do the rest at home. But I need that nobody bugging me, not being in my environment where I'm distracted. I'm like, oh, I should go do that. But yeah, that focus time is so amazing. And I find as entrepreneurs, we don't give ourselves that time to enjoy that and take that opportunity because we feel like we have so many people to serve, but it makes a massive difference. Even like once every 6 weeks, take that time to lock yourself down, think about the business, get the work done that you need to get done that you're not able to do because you're getting pulled in so many different directions, and it will help you to move mountains in your business.
And you know, Angela, my final thought to the entrepreneurs, and I think it's important that our audience know, you and I have met once in a message, and we talked on the phone briefly. We have never asked each other our philosophies. We had no idea where this morning was going to go or today, and yet we're talking about checking into and no glass ceiling, and so we're a mirror image of each other. So I think we've given a very united style of entrepreneurship to the listeners. You and I have not confusing. Would you agree?
Yes, I do. I love it. Honestly, after I met you the first time, I was like, oh, I need to know this person more. And we had technical glitches, and then I was running late and all this. So I really do appreciate that you gave us the chance to have this conversation and explore your journey, because you have a myriad of information to share with people and experience and insight. So it's truly been an honor to have you on here. If anyone wants to get a hold of you, Jenny, how could they reach out to you?
The easiest way, go through my dental website, which is my initials, jdsg.com. My speaker web, which is speakercoachpro.com. It has a homepage, and it says speakers, we're upgrading, and in the next maybe 10 days, I will finish some of my copy, but jdsg.com will always find me.
Perfect. Well, again, it has been an honor. Thank you for sharing your journey with the Badass Entrepreneurs Club. You truly are a badass and an inspiration. And I hope that people will take to heart what you told us today. Thanks again, Jenny.
And Angela, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.